I don't like these different changes that Rob Manfred is trying to implement right now in the baseball world right now. Now I look at the MLB right now, and with the whole COVID-19 and the situation that the MLB is trying to figure out and configure something where it makes sense when the season does come back, maybe 90 games or 100 games. We don't know when it's going to come back. It can come back in June. It can come back at the end of May. But they have to go through spring training. And what we're hearing, it's going to be at least 2 to 3 weeks of spring training, which they're going to do a cactus league and grapefruit league like they have done every spring training. The only problem here is where MLB is trying to configure it is they think it would be better if they change the leagues in the divisions if they do play in New York, like the Yankees play in New York and the Mets play at Citi Field. If they decide that they don't have to go and play in Arizona or Florida for a whole season, the best way to do this is to change the divisions where you can implicate more games in certain days and certain weeks where you can get 90 games in a 4 or 5 month radius or something like that. I disagree what Rob Manfred is trying to do right now.
Now, my thing before you came in was, are you worried about maybe the schedule distribution being unfair for certain teams too? Because there are 10 games divisions, but again, there's going to be some teams that have to play more games against another opponent than others, where in the regular 162 game setup, they have it structured where that scheduling thing is going to be a lot more clearer. Now it's going to be unclear. Do you think that'll end up being unfair too?
I think a lot of things that Rob Manfred is trying to do, and I understand he is the commissioner of the league, and I understand what he is trying to configure here, where he thinks it will make sense, where the league could actually have a 90-game season and have these many games in an implicated time. I just disagree in what you're saying, especially what he is trying to implicate in the division and how to divide this. There should be an American League East, an American League West, and what they have right now implicated, and figure out how they can configure these games. If you want to have American League, if you want to get as many games as you can in a certain amount of months, well, then in the first 3 or 4 weeks, have a lot more American League East games against the American League East. And in the National League, the National League East. Because you know and I know that every single year the National League plays against each division plays against one another at least between 15 and 18 times.
I think the maximum is 19, but it's something in that range. Yeah.
So what I would do in the first month and a half is have these teams play against one another more times than they are playing out of division. What it does is it gets more games in. It gets it gets you at least 12 or 13 games for the season against one another. And then if you're going to have to travel, which you're trying to protect all the players from COVID-19, where then you can go from one division to the next division where you don't have to travel as much.
Right. And that's what I was saying earlier. I think in terms of the geographic proximity of everything, outside of the Florida teams and Atlanta having to travel to the Central because they, for some reason, got switched into the Central, there's not going to be a lot of that. So at least that end of it is good for it. Now, again, because of interleague play within those divisions, though, too, it's not going to be able to work where you're going to have every team playing against division rivals right away. So would you rather have it be in the beginning of the season, beginning and end, maybe? Crunch time games?
I don't think they should. If you don't want them to travel as much, and that's what Rob Manfred doesn't want. And that's what Donald Trump doesn't want. He doesn't want people traveling. So if that's the case, that's what I would do. I would play more games against the divisions in the beginning of the season and more games at the end of the season. So
yeah, it's interesting because I'm again, are they going to even it out where if they have 10 teams in a division and they just get rid of the American League and National League, I guess, titles, are they going to distribute it where they have, let's say it's 100 games, where they have 9 games against each team or something like that, or 10 games against each team? Or are they going to do it where it's still, all right, if you're, say, the Mets, you're still playing 12 games against the Phillies, 12 games against the Nationals, but you're also still playing maybe 7 against the Rays kind of thing. It'll be interesting to see how that ends up doing it.
I don't think the major leagues or the MLB should be changing divisions just because it's a short season. We've seen short seasons before. We saw it in the 90s with the strike year. I think 94. They played I think they played how many games? They played 80 games?
I think they played over 100, but I think it was
it 100?
I think they played over 100. I think the Yankees and the Expos had the best records. I think they were like 74-40 or something like that.
So okay, so if you're playing if the MLB is going to transition it and give them at least 90 games, well then you're going to have to figure out how you're going to fit at least 30 games each month in. So if there's 30 days in a month, some months might be 29, I don't know. Most of them are 30
or 31, yeah.
30, 31. What I would do is give them, if it's 31, you give them 1 day off in the month because you're trying to fill in. Remember, they have such a break right now where they're getting all the rest that they want.
Right.
Now going into the season, they have more than enough rest where they can fit in all these games, at least 30 games in a month where you have 1 day of break. But also, if there is a rain out, and that could happen, what they could do is have double headers in certain days too. If they want to fit more games in a month, if they want to fit 33 or 34 games in a month, what I would do is I would double up 1 week, give them a doubleheader 1 week, and then give them a doubleheader another week, and give them a doubleheader another week.
Yeah.
Don't fit them in where you're doing 2 doubleheaders in 1 week. It's too much for the players, and that could cause injuries and cause pulls, muscle pulls, whatever. Where there could be injuries.
Right, and then it ends up being overused at that certain point. I think they would have to maybe spread out the amount of doubleheaders if they do it like that. Maybe even, again, distribute it where they have a certain amount in a season, depending on how much time it is. Now, it's projected to start later in June. I think the date I read was June 21st is what they're aiming for. So,
wow, all the way from, when are they starting spring training?
No, the regular season would start June 21st.
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about.
They're
saying spring training would be in May. That's what they said. It would be sometime at the end of May. That's what I heard.
So they would start that and then I guess have the 3 weeks then. So in terms of the regular season, I think they would be able to distribute like that. So it'll be interesting to see if they scatter the double headers if they do that, because they're going to have to end up doing them without the rainouts regardless. And then obviously how they can adjust with the rainouts too is going to be interesting.
It really bothers me that Rob Manfred is trying to change the wheel of the league and trying to change divisions and put divisions together because it makes more sense to help the league or help fill in more games. There's not going to be an all-star game this year, so I know a lot of fans are going to say, well, is there going to be an all-star break? There isn't. This is their all-star break. And I don't know if there's going to be a trade deadline either because it's such a short year. If they're playing 90 games, I can't see it. Unless they do decide maybe early in the season, maybe 30 or 40 games into the season, where they will have a trade deadline. I don't know what Rob Manfred is trying to implement into what the league wants going into the season. I do believe there's going to be a baseball season. I just don't know when is it going to start. And if it does start at the end of June, I don't know if there's going to be 100 games. It's too late in the season. I could see 80 or 75 games. There's not going to be as many games. It's probably going to be a half a season.
I can't imagine a trade deadline that can happen on July 31st in this instance. They have to push that maybe to August.
I don't know what Rob Manfred's going to do, but again, Rob Manfred is trying to change the wheel and spin the wheel and make the deal with the MLB. And unfortunately, sometimes this doesn't work out. I'm hoping, because I'm a big baseball fan, that we will have a baseball season and we can actually go and watch a couple of baseball games this year. I just don't know how that's going to happen if they're trying to preach the social distancing and everything that's going on. Because if you don't know, China opened up everything a couple of weeks ago and COVID even got worse. There's a bigger outbreak right now in China. So I don't know if the MLB is going to do that. I do believe that there will be a baseball season. I just don't know if it's going to be a baseball season with fans in the seats.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think you're going to see that probably until next year. Now, again, I still think this kind of thing, just keeping it condensed, at least within geographic regions, will help enhance the amount of games that would be played. I feel like if you were to try to go back to normal, you'd only get probably a 60-game season, which would be worse, I think. I think baseball players and fans will still want more games.
It's just, to me, it's very bothersome when you think of baseball and what baseball is trying to do and Rob Manfred's trying to do. You don't hear the NBA trying to change anything. And I understand they only have 16 games, 17 games left of the regular season, and then they have to go through a playoff round. I could see Adam Silver changing the playoffs around. And what I mean by that is they might have, instead of having 7-game series in the second round, because they only play 5 games in the first round, they might play the first 2 rounds 5 games, because that would end the series quicker and get through the playoffs even quicker. Because, again, there has to be a draft. They have to have at least a month break before they could start training again for the next season. And you don't want to hurt these players because, again, even though they're out for a significant amount of time right now, these guys got to get back into shape. They got to get their muscles strengthened and all that other stuff. There's a lot of training. These guys are professional athletes. These are top of the, their muscles, their everything. They're stretching. Everything's got to be perfect if these guys expect to play well in the regular season or in the playoffs.
Now, you think it would have been different, though, if they were at the time of this whole pandemic, if they were at the start of the season versus baseball being at the start of the season, at the end of the season? Because it's much easier to adjust when you have less games to deal with, though, too.
I don't know, Speedy. My argument here is when you think of the MLB and you think of Rob Manfred and everything that he's done so far this offseason with the Houston Astros and now not coming out and telling us the whole situation with the Boston Red Sox. He says we have to wait until the beginning of the season before we can find out what his outlook towards what is he going to do with the Red Sox and what is his story between what he has investigated with the Boston Red Sox.
Of the two, I guess. Yeah.
So I don't think it's a comparison. He's going to tell us his investigation. He's not going to compare the Houston Astros and the Boston Red Sox. That's not what a commissioner does, Speedy. What he is going to do is he's going to come out with the story on why he didn't come out with, why didn't he tell us the situation with the Boston Red Sox earlier after they got the story in and they know the whole situation. I believe, and I've said this over and over again, and I'll say this again, the reason why he is not coming out with the story with the Boston Red Sox and giving us his whole investigation is because if it comes out now and there's nothing to talk about in sports, this will be the big story in sports. And if there is a story behind why the Red Sox won their World Series in 2017 or 2018, it's going to be an outcry, not only in professional baseball, but throughout the, throughout the professional sports and throughout everything that's going on in professional sports.
Yeah, I think they have had enough negative publicity this offseason to be able to deal with that again.
I'm a little off with everything that's going on in sports, especially when you think of all these commissioners. You talk about Gary Bettman. And even Dana White right now. Dana White keeps talking about UFC 250. Then he says, I'm going to bring it back down to UFC 249. Now the upcoming fights are going to be called, it's going to be UFC 249. He doesn't know. Now I'm hearing Daniel Cormier said, he actually came out, there's an article that came out that Daniel Cormier said that if he does go to UFC 249, that his wife will not let him inside the house. Mm-hmm. So that this has a lot to do with the coronavirus, and he has kids and he has a family. I don't know if he has his mother or his grandmother living with him. So obviously this is a dangerous situation, not only for professional sports, but where we are as a country. So I'm thrown off with the whole Rob Manfred thing. I disagree with Rob Manfred trying to change the divisions and figure out how the divisions will work. And I think it should be an American League East, a National League East, a National League West, an American League West. Everything that they have set up right now, it should stay the way it is. Because again, what bothers me about changing leagues and trying to change divisions and putting different teams in different divisions because it's a shorter season is it hurts some of these bad teams or some of these teams that are expected to have good seasons. Right. You're putting them in a harder division where it's going to be harder for them to make the playoffs.
I was bringing it before the AL Central, I think, getting hurt the most with this because I think they had 2 rebuilding teams already in their division with the Tigers and the Royals, and now they get their own competition, the Indians and the White Sox and the Twins. They would have had it anyway, but now you're also getting the NL Central, which outside of the Pirates, who are also rebuilding, they got good teams in that division too, so now you're adding that into the mix. So I think they ended up getting hurt the most in terms of the distribution of what this would be.
It's going to be very, very interesting when the NBA, the MLB, the NHL, UFC, all the professional sports come back, and they're going to try to figure out, are they going to have fans? Are they not going to have fans? Are they going to change? And same thing with boxing. You haven't heard anything with boxing in the last couple of weeks, really the last couple of months. All these fights that were planned, they're going to be canceled, and they're going to have to be rescheduled.
Sure, and how well have they done in the last 20 years of player development?